Hani Bojo Kwekwe Scano. It's Catherine from Moonstarlodge. It's the 20th of June, and I've had a number of requests today to discuss and help people with what kinds of rituals are appropriate for summer solstice. And in some cultures, the ceremonies started 3 days ago, and then there's solstice, and then they continue for 3 days after. But for us, tomorrow is National Indigenous Day within the whole of Indigenous History Month. So I'm going to bring to you the kinds of rituals that we are preparing to do and the context of why. But first, let me point out a couple of things. As we sit on the medicine wheel, we are at the point, this is summer solstice, where the red meets the yellow. Now, in Anishinaabeg culture, yellow is here and red is at the bottom. It's not any different. We are here on the medicine wheel. We are at the point of the longest light. We have had the full moon of the 6th grandmother storyteller. So that's important to remember, because storyteller is the grandmother that is with us during this summer solstice, and I will come to her. We are preparing for the new moon of the 7th, or the middle moon cycle, which will happen on June 28th, and that's Loves All Things. Extremely important moon cycle on June 28th, and factors very much into what we are doing with our rituals tomorrow. In fact, let me see here, 4th quarter of this moon cycle happened today at 10:18 a.m. So that means in the 4th quarter of any moon cycle, we are getting rid of, we are removing. In gardening, we deadhead, we weed, we plant nothing. So that 4th quarter energy factors into our rituals tomorrow. The summer solstice happens at 5:13 a.m. tomorrow morning, June 21st, here in the Northern Hemisphere at least. So let's talk for a minute about the entities on the wheel, coming back to this. We have eagle, wolf or coyote, we have bear, we have buffalo. We have all the other luminaries that populate all 13 moon cycles, so there are totems. We have the sky people, we have the plant people, we have the tall standing people who represent the trees. Grandfather sun, grandmother moon, father sky, turtle mother earth. We have the stone people. So that encompasses the record. The stone people are the keepers of the record of everything on earth. Think of fossils. But they also have an energy that records our history. So all of the portions of the wheel represent earth, air, fire, and water. So the 4 elements plus the 5th element of ether or spirit are important in our ritual preparations for tomorrow and for other things like new moons and full moons. When many of you have come here to our home to have winter solstice ceremonies in the past 40 years almost, 30 years with Brian and I anyway, we put together an ancestor plate from the foods that are brought together by the people attending the ceremony. we are in Strawberry Moon, and strawberries are the first fruit or gift. They are both womb-shaped and heart-shaped. So Turtle Mother gives us her heart and her womb in the spring. So consequently, instead of the winter foods that we would have for winter solstice, it's a beautiful idea to give the berries that are coming up. So if you have them or can find them, this is the time to put berries out in your ceremony. So let's talk about, we'll get Brian to flip to the table here. So all ceremonies, whether you're talking a wedding, a funeral, just sunrise ceremony or sunset ceremony, new moons, full moons, solstices, equinoxes, eclipses, celebrations, funerals, births, we have a number of things that are consistently used. And so as you accumulate your sacred ceremonial objects, and that doesn't mean buying them at a store, you will have these items, these ritual items to use over time. So as we have harvested things, we've collected them in jars. This particular jar actually isn't a plant product. This has horsehair. But we do over here have some sacred tobacco. Things that represent the four elements of earth, air, fire, and water are represented on this table. So things of the earth include things like the crystal skulls. Crystals come from the earth. We also have sacred stones you may find that aren't like gems. These happen to be crystal gems. But these ones are doing double purpose because they represent for me on my sacred altar space the ancestors and the stone people. We have things of the earth like the plants. So we have sages, we have sweetgrass here. The sweetgrass is kind of tucked away. We have things that represent the water. We have the shell. Tomorrow, Brian will take me down to the water and I will put in my copper cup. Copper is traditional. I will put in my copper cup some of the water and I will do a ceremony at the water with and for Nibby, as we say. And I will do that from the point of view of making connection, praying for, and thanking. Other things from the totems. So fire, sorry, I should come back to the elements. Fire is represented obviously by fire, and where possible, we use wooden matches. We don't use a lighter. If you absolutely, the winds are too difficult, use a lighter. Don't abort your ceremony because you can't get fire. And the wind has a number of things, but typically a feather represents the flyers, and the flyers are part of one of the kingdoms that we ritually connect with. So you can have a feather representing air. How you represent spirit is entirely up to you, but typically we have some kind of little vessel. I've had this thing for years. It's been used for funerals. It's been used for all sorts of things, but this little iron pot can travel to places where we are doing ceremony. Now that I'm in the wheelchair, it's harder, but we make our way. Singing our song is an important connection to spirit because our voice is an out loud representation of the prayers we are sending. But we also send our prayers on smoke. So these are things here, all of these things. I have a rattle, here, a little tiny rattle. I have crystals that aren't shaped to represent the ancestors. I have a prayer flag that we've been working on for a long time. It hasn't yet been returned to the earth, but it will be. I have rope for knot ceremony, and this is a wonderful way to connect on solstice. The same thing with a prayer tie, which contains tobacco. It contains, at the very least, tobacco, sema if you can get it, but a loose pipe tobacco if you can't get traditional sema. But it can also contain cedar, wild rice, sage, and so on. Flip the camera there, Brian. So these things on this table are an accumulation of a lifetime. The bones that I showed in the little basket, you might have recognized the bird totem here connected with one of my clans. This is from one of our little doggies, Spike, and it got dug up by wild animals, so I brought it in. We have things that, have taken a lifetime. They're not things that you find in a store. Ritual ceremony involves collection. So, what is the purpose? I mentioned winter solstice a few minutes ago, and winter solstice is a time when we look in the longest part of the day is darkness. So it's the time of the longest dark. And I have spoken of the story of looking through the pine trees and the cedar trees and seeing the stars as if they are sitting on the branches. And those are the ancestors. They want us to know that they are always there in the sky, whether we can see them or not. And it's a reminder of spiritual narcolepsy, forgetting about our ancestors when we can't see them. So ritual brings us back to the reminder of the sacred. Father's Day is very often quite close to summer solstice, and so we do have that very close to the day, the reminder of the sacredness of the males in our life. And the balance with summer solstice is recognizing the balance of the feminine. So we are not calling to the ancestors. Rather, with summer solstice, the difference is we are bringing the longest amount of light, bringing the light of creation into us. And those are expressions of gratitude. We are balancing the Father's Day that we just celebrated, which is not an Indigenous holiday. It's a very Western thing, but people are celebrating. And so they're thinking of ancestors. They're thinking of the male ancestors. But we have just finished, hopefully, planting everything that we are going to plant for this season. Turtle Mother has already gifted us with her beautiful strawberries, and she'll begin with the raspberries and the other fruits. And we've seen the blossoms from the apple trees have already been and gone, and that sort of thing. We're seeing the fruiting, the blossoming of the earth. We are seeing the greening of the trees, the greening of the land. So we are expressing gratitude for blessings which are known and blessings unknown already manifesting. Where storyteller comes into this particular set of ceremonies, because we're in fourth quarter, that letting go, that removal of things, we are grateful for an increase of the gifts and the support, not only from the earth with the foods that we're going to harvest over the next 3 or 4 months, but the gifts of spirit, the enlightenment, To be inspired is from the Latin in spiritus, to breathe in the light. We are grateful tomorrow for the light, and we are grateful for all the elements. So rituals include something to do with water, something to do with being on the land. Now, whether you go to a forest, whether you stand where earth and sky meet rock and water, which are my teachings, as if you've ever been to a class here or listened to some of our other videos, you'll recognize that the place of shamanic power is where earth and sky meet rock and water. So we are speaking to the sky beings tomorrow. We are speaking to the planetary light beings, because the planets shapeshift between their planetary body, but they also have a spirit form. We are speaking to and being grateful for the water, as I mentioned earlier, the land, and the stone people. So where earth and sky meet rock and water. So we are able to celebrate all of the four elements, particularly if you put your prayers onto paper, or in the case of what we do, we write them on birch bark, and then we commit them with fire to our pot, whatever pot. I mean, you can have an old kitchen pot as long as it will take the heat. And then we turn the ashes onto the land when it's all consumed, and we return our prayers. But the smoke has carried our prayers to the Creator. Of course, we will smudge. We will use our power shells and our feather wands, and we will smudge, and we will use our drums, and we will sing a song. Even if you don't know the songs, make a point of saying, I'm grateful for the song that I'm going to learn this year, even if you only ever learn one song. Your ritual can include rope. A long piece of natural rope, whether it's jute or cotton. One of the ways to express gratitude is to put a knot in a piece of rope, knot representing each thing you're grateful for. And the last knot should be for your own life. And you're going to use something safe, whether it's a knife or scissor, and you're going to cut the knot off that represents you and put it in your bundle. And the rest of the knots that you're grateful for, you can commit with flame. And that becomes a prayer, and you stay with that as it's burnt and consumed. And again, as long as it's natural fiber, the ashes can go back to the land. We try to do ceremony for a minimum of 20 minutes, upwards of 90 minutes. Time is not the critical factor. Time is not part of the parameters which you define what your ritual means. You should have a connection to the energies, so bare feet if you can. People have said, but what if it's raining? Well, you do have a full day before and a full day after the actual time of solstice. We have that long period of light, those 3 days. So at some point, be prepared for that. We gather water in our sacred cup. We also gather water in glass jars, and we will hold it. Now, when we are gathering these things and doing these ceremonies, and we are thanking the ancestors, we are thanking the planetary light beings, we are thanking the dotems, all the dotems around the wheel, the dotems from your family, your clan. We are thanking all of the plant people. We are giving offerings, offering our tobacco to the earth. We are giving thanks for that light that we are absorbing into our spirit. We are giving thanks for this beautiful summer and the survival of the winter and getting through those months of dark and hardship. We are giving thanks for unknown blessings already manifest. This is manifestation. Whatever hardness, here's where storyteller comes in. Whatever hardness you have in your heart, whatever person, place, thing, event that you cannot find forgiveness for, this is a very important fourth quarter until the new moon on the 28th. So tomorrow is the 21st, and you've got this 1 week of fourth quarter. Because with the emergence of the new moon on the 28th of She Who Loves All Things, my grandmother, Viola, we called her Nanny, she used to say that her family called this grandmother not loves all things, but she who finds love in all things. It is the most incredible gift of forgiveness to find not necessarily the good in a situation of violence or trauma, but to forgive. For in forgiving you allow yourself to heal and you give distance to the event so that you are rewriting the story that storyteller is asking you to rewrite about your own history. When we get to the 7th moon cycle, we are, this is the beginning of the year, and we are halfway through the year. So the 7th moon cycle is the middle moon cycle. There are 6 moon cycles before it and 6 after. So we are halfway through the year tomorrow. How you move through the rest of the year depends on the beauty way, the way you walk with your rituals tomorrow. And there's no, you must do this, you must do that, there's no order. The order comes from your heart and your breath. The order comes from your mind and the information that comes from your spirit and your connection to the Creator, Kichimunido. Know that this is an important journey tomorrow to celebrate the enlightenment, the bringing in the light, so that your spirit soars. And your spirit will soar higher if you change and rewrite whatever stories that you carry, letting them go, putting them to bed. Let them be gone. Do ceremony to release them, as well as the ceremony for solstice. I hope this is helpful. I hope this has been helpful. I'm going to ask Brian to chime in. Is there anything that you can think of that I have not spoken to?
No, nothing.
All right. Then miigwech, nyawen, aho, be at peace and have a wonderful day. It's supposed to be very hot here in central Ontario. So get out there and spend your day in the light.